All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This has been a few weeks in the making. We've been excited to work again with our friend and partner, eGain. eGain is the #1 AI knowledge platform for customer engagement. We've done a few of these before with eGain. We're excited to be back with them. We believe that we have a mutual audience and a lot of synergy between the two organizations. So we hope to do many more of these. If you're new to KMI, just a real quick note on who we are, just to give a proper introduction. We're home to the #1 certification in KM. That would be the Certified Knowledge Manager program. But we also branched out into our specialist curriculum, which is basically a deep dive into a specific KM topic like enterprise AI. And we hope that you look into one or more of these topics, and we'll be happy to help you out. We're also known for great free content. We have a nice webinar section over here on a lot of interesting KM topics. And we have our popular top 5 themed webinars as well, which is a listing of our instructors' list of their top 5 methodologies, even some failures along the way. So it's just great content to glean from, in addition to the training that we do. And don't forget to check out the blog section for all of our latest KM articles. And if you haven't already joined KMI, please do so, because you'll get our monthly newsletter, which is a nice digest of all of our KM activity. So thank you for that. But let's go ahead and introduce our eGain folks. I want to stop share real quick. And we're going to hand it over to Evan Siegel. And we have Mark Herman with us as well. And gentlemen, you can go ahead and take over, and I will get back to letting folks in.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I'm Evan Siegel. A little bit about me. I've got a broad experience. I'm currently the Vice President of AI Solutions at eGain. Prior to eGain, my career kind of fell into 2 segments. The first 12 years working at big consulting firms like Bain and EY, working on the customer experience and increasing customer efficiency. Then, like a lot of you, I took an operate role. So I have scars on my back trying to drive the type of change I'll be talking about. And that was at a mega bank. I had 2 roles there, one as a customer experience lead across the entire enterprise. And then the second one was on the leadership team of the 12,000 person contact center. Mark, over to you.
Yeah, hi everybody. Mark Herman with eGain. I'm a senior director of solution consulting, and I've been with eGain for 20 years or so, doing a lot of knowledge management and other customer communications projects. So thanks, Evan.
So what we're going to talk about today, we'll give you a little context about eGain, and then we'll talk about the hottest topic to hit business in the last 25 years, generative AI. Both we'll talk about the promise and the caveat of that promise may not be fully met, but we'll also give you some tips about how KM is knowledge management is really the foundation for generative AI success, and then how eGain's Knowledge Hub actually kind of delivers that foundational success. And we'll finish it up with some success stories, actual client engagements, and some lessons learned as we sort of summarize. And then I'll turn it over to Mark, who will do a demo. So brief background on eGain. We are the top-rated knowledge platform for customer service. It's not just eGain that says that, however. Folks like KM World, the industry publication, acknowledge our leadership. We've won multiple awards going back 3 or 4 years from KM World. We also get top recognition from Gartner. They've recognized us in their market guide and then their critical capabilities report. And another piece that they do, which I really find insightful, they do something called peer insights. They actually vet who's a customer of various software companies, and they have those customers write reviews. We get a score of 4.9 out of 5, which we're very proud of, because as you know, customers are demanding of their software companies in this day and age, and we're meeting those demands. We're trusted by over 200 global brands. The types of companies that really get tons of value from us are companies that are complex and in highly regulated and compliant industries that require a lot of compliance. That's why, we really have some great global brands in financial services, healthcare, retail and manufacturing, telco and the federal government. We also do really well in field service with all the complexity there, and manufacturing and many other industries, but the ones on the screen here are where we have a strong presence. So let's talk a little bit about generative AI. If you haven't heard enough, you're going to hear some more here, because as you know, it's such a hot topic now. You know, the Wall Street Journal called the hottest job in America today, in the C-suite, the hottest job is the Chief AI Officer. It's generative AI sweeping the C-suite. You can see the types of projects and the focus that organizations have on generative AI. It's something like I don't think any of us have seen in business. We talk to literally hundreds of companies a year that are kicking off their AI efforts, and we see some of the pitfalls that they're experiencing. So I'll share some of those with you. And it's, you know, with all this excitement about generative AI, like almost any new technology, the reality doesn't often live up to the hype. So Gartner came out with this prediction that really nicely crystallizes that you can't just sort of bolt generative AI on top of your current business. And I'll explain that statement in a second. But what Gartner said is, by 2025, 100% of generative AI virtual customer assistant and virtual agent assistant projects that lack integration to a modern knowledge management system will fail to meet the customer experience and operational cost reduction goals. Now, I don't know how many of you follow Gartner closely, but in my reading of them, I've never seen them make such a bold prediction where they say with 100% certainty. And the other thing is, normally they'll kind of forecast out a couple of years to give them a little bit of wiggle room, but they're saying in this calendar year. So they're really saying that the common scenario that we see out there a lot of times, which is companies just sort of plop a generative AI solution onto their current knowledge mess, which is typically multiple silos of information, outdated information gaps, etc. Generative AI is not a magic bullet that solves all of that chaos. If you have garbage going in, you're going to get garbage out, which is why they are arguing you need a modern knowledge management system. So let's drill in a little bit more about how knowledge management is the foundation for generative AI success. Well, first of all, let's go a little deeper on what is the potential for generative AI? What the smart people are saying, the McKinsey research being one of those, is that they looked at all the areas in business where you could get results, and they said the potential reduction for a customer service cost from generative AI is a astounding 30 to 45% over the next couple of years in customer service. Why? Because the generative AI can help suggest a response. The generative AI can help guide customers and agents. It can summarize a call experience. It can do the wrap up. So lots of functionality that generative AI can deliver. Likewise, what we're seeing at eGain, where we've incorporated generative AI into our authoring and knowledge curation solution, is a dramatic speed up of the ability to curate, identify gaps, fill those gaps with new knowledge. In fact, we're seeing a 60 to 80% improvement in efficiency. So it starts to address that problem that Gartner was talking about, that garbage in scenario, where most companies have gaps, outdated information, tribal knowledge they're trying to capture, etc. So KM is really key here to taking the benefits out of generative AI. And to say a little bit more about that, generative AI really helps in each step of the life cycle, things like helping the team members or customers discover the right information, make sure that information is accurate and is exactly what the customer needs, the right answer at the right time, that it can be delivered in any channel, and that there's feedback loops with that knowledge to make sure that as gaps arise, they are quickly filled. So a modern knowledge hub fills helps safely operationalize generative AI by giving that trusted content, by giving the controls and governance, and I'll give pictures of this in a second to really help you wrap your head around this. Providing closed loop analytics about, for instance, what generative AI prompts are working, which ones are not, and allows you to have process orchestration where you can walk customers or agents through complex processes with step-by-step guidance. So at the end of the day, what Gartner's saying, what eGain is saying, and what we're seeing with our client successes is that you need a leading knowledge management solution if you want to get the benefits of generative AI that McKinsey Institute and others are talking about. So let's go a little bit deeper. Let me show you some of the capabilities we've built in and the architecture we've created that now incorporates generative AI into our knowledge solution. So what we're showing here is sort of a new approach and the architecture that's needed, where you not only plop generative AI in, but you sort of have all the complements and all the safeties and the benefit of 25 years of other knowledge management best practices. So working left to right on this page, what you see is, what a leading knowledge solution needs to do is be able to source seamlessly from whatever a client's knowledge is currently stored, whether that be SharePoints and PDF systems in CRM. So you source it seamlessly, and then the experts, the knowledge authors and the knowledge managers use AI to both create, curate, and organize that knowledge. So there's no gaps, there's no inconsistencies, and everything's up to date. In the best practice companies, they then store all their knowledge in a single source of truth, a knowledge hub, that produces the trusted answers, the trusted answer, the right trusted answer at the right time to the right person in the right channel. And that's how we show here getting published out to any one of these constituents, the customer, the agent, the field rep, or another bot. Even if your company's using a bot, it still should be taking all the guidance from one single knowledge hub, a single source of truth. So at eGain, that's exactly the architecture we've created. We have an AI knowledge hub that delivers trusted answers. So we actually have out-of-the-box APIs with pretty much every place that people currently keep their knowledge. We then have incorporated AI into the create and organize steps. And we have, over the 25 years, also built incredible workflow. So what does that mean? That means that someone can sit down, put in a rough outline if they're trying, let's say it's a tribal knowledge expert, and they've got some policies or procedures that people always call on them. They're about to retire. They can use eGain's generative AI capability, put in a subject line of what's this new policy or procedure, 4 or 5 bullet points that it needs to incorporate. And the generative AI will create a really solid first draft of that knowledge. And then the workflows, it'll get routed to the knowledge manager, subject matter experts, legal, compliance, and they're all nudged to edit, enhance, and sign off on that new knowledge. And then it gets published in the right form for the channel, the customer. So that's sort of how we've incorporated AI into the authoring, curation, and content part. And then we've also created the AI, incorporated the AI into the find part with features such as instant answer, where you can type in a question and you'll get just the generated blur, and I'll show a picture of that later, of a concise answer to help the customer or the team member answer a key question. And then we have the capabilities to omni-channel publish those answers. And then lastly, that feedback loop with analytics and reporting to make sure that, it's a new technology, new capabilities, very powerful, but you need to have the data to draw on a continuous improvement loop to make sure your knowledge base is as useful as possible and all the searches are as successful as possible. So let's go a little deeper on how generative AI, when married with knowledge management, helps all the key stakeholders in your business, the customers and the agents, the authors and the analysts. So here's an example of what the agent or the customer might see. This is the example of the generative AI on the instant answer in a customer portal. What you see here is a question that really has two questions incorporated into it. In sort of the KM nerd terms, it's a multi-thread question. And what eGain's knowledge management solution does is we've incorporated generative AI to generate an instant answer, short, pithy, gets at the key points of this two-part question. And then if the customer wants to, if the agent wants to read a little bit more, go a little deeper, they can click on those blue tabs on the bottom, which is where the source content came from for the generative AI answer. Similarly, that same capability is available via chat to a customer, where they can get sort of pithy instant answers. And eGain has a capability to integrate with back-end systems. This chat you see here on the right-hand side of the screen is about an overdraft fee, which to sort of know if the customer's had an overdraft fee, how many overdraft fees they've had, are they a high-value customer or not. It basically enables that chat with the integration with the back-end system, as well as some business rule logic to make that fee reversal situation. And I love this example because in the eGain system, you can set up this sort of, do we waive the overdraft fee or not, quickly within an hour or two. Whereas at the old mega bank I worked at, I led a project where we spent $1 million to build a decision tool to actually do this very same thing. So to me, it's like such a testament to the power of generative AI in a knowledge management system that this decision rule can be done in an hour or two versus $1 million and 6 months of development work. Similarly, as I described earlier, the integration of the AI, the generative AI, into the author experience, what we've done is we've created best practice generative AI prompts. You can see the partial menu here on the screen of the types of prompts we've got. So generate content from a suggestion, write an article. And what's cool about this is the output using these prompts aligns with the best practices that eGain has learned in our 25 years in this business. So for instance, that's the sort of bullets, and then you put in, and then you hit the generate a new article. The new article will align with best practices. Where a table is needed to simply display complex information, a table is used. Where subheads are needed, a subheading will be created. Where pithy and direct language is needed, that'll be done as well. So the content created using the generative AI aligns with knowledge management best practices. Similarly, remember in the architecture we showed that sort of feedback loop. The eGain solution comes with the analytics and the reporting you need to continue to improve this new technology, this marrying of knowledge management and AI. So if you look, the chart in the lower left-hand corner, top search phrases below confidence threshold. That's real AI inside baseball. Let me explain that. It's basically when we use a large language model to do a search, we get a confidence level back from the large language model. How confident is it in the results it's producing? And this will allow you to say, hey, the searches on these particular areas are coming back with low confidence. We need to probably improve our content in that area and make other improvements so these common searches with low confidence levels back from the search results produce better results. Great example, very tactical, very detailed, but it's through this type of insight, through this type of continuous improvement, that you can provide your customers and agents with the content, the right answers they need, the right trusted answers at the right time. All right, let me stitch this all together and show you success we've had with actually implementing some of these AI tools with a European leading utility. So this utility, it's actually in Ireland. It's one of the largest utilities in Ireland. Needed, utility business, when your customers call you, they really need you. If their service is about to be cut off, or there's a storm outage, a storm caused outage in their area, the need for accurate, trusted answers is very high. And this particular client knew that their current knowledge solution wasn't meeting the goals of findability, trust, and the agents just weren't using the tool because the culture was, hey, current tools we have, the knowledge we have is not great. So I'm just going to revert to asking my neighbor when in doubt. And so the executive team wanted to improve the staff confidence, not only in their answers, but in the tools that they were using. And these are standard challenges we see among our clients and prospects, and I'm sure many of you in the audience face these same challenges. There was a variety and wide range of customer questions that were asked. The knowledge system that they had outdated knowledge. It's the classic. There was inconsistent. Sometimes they would search and get one answer to one question, and 2 hours later might search that same question and get a different answer. And that obviously undermined the agent confidence in the material they were provided. They had multiple silos. And so the team that managed the content, multiple silos of knowledge, had a real hard time getting their hands around what policies and procedures were the right ones, which ones were out of date. There was just too much scattered across too many different sources. And so they really needed this new system to earn the trust of their agents. So they chose eGain. They went through a rigorous selection process looking at multiple vendors. And the reason they chose eGain was they liked all the functionality for the agents, the authors, and the end customers, including the ability to really ramp up their digital self-service game. They liked the fact that it was easy to find the accurate answers. And they really liked that second from the bottom bullet point, the domain expertise that eGain brought with generative AI. And let me tell you a story about that, because there's one use case that we used here when implementing it that really changed the game for this utility. So what we did with them was this particular client did not have a good handle on what were their top issue types. And so the recommendation that eGain had, because we've been doing this so long with so many clients, was let's not just take your existing spaghetti mess of knowledge that you currently have and just pour it in, because it'll take a long time to sort that out. Let's create the knowledge that you need. So we looked at their calls, we converted them to text, and we used our AI tools to analyze tens of thousands of recent customer interactions and came up with details on what were the top issue types that customers were actually contacting this utility for. Then with that up-to-date information on what were the top issue types, we used the generative AI tools to create best-of-breed new knowledge. So we wrote the knowledge that they needed from scratch using the generative AI tools so that it was exactly what they needed. The result of that process, right out of the gate with implementation, because we created using the generative AI tools largely new knowledge base, was the team members reported a 6 times improvement in finding the answers. And the answers that they found were highly accurate, easy to consume, easy to understand. And so they got those bottom line results that every contact center executive dreams about, right? Higher first contact resolution, reduced workload, and the agents feeling that they were better supported. On the front end, the authoring team who was creating all this new knowledge reported that using these generative AI tools allowed them to create new knowledge 5 times faster. So they've continued down this journey, kind of building up their knowledge base, identifying the inconsistencies, and really cleaning it up at a much more rapid pace. So this client is continuing to move and go even deeper into the generative AI capabilities. The next step for them is they're going to incorporate that GenAI instant answers solution that I talked about, where they get the pithy summary of what might be a multi-threaded question. And they're going to start publishing the knowledge base to self-service and creating an agent-assisted service capability. So sort of before I turn it over to Mark for a demonstration, as we sort of, as eGain and the executive team has been looking at our early client success with generative AI and all the industry trends, we wanted to sort of summarize with some lessons learned that we see and common pitfalls and how you all can avoid those common pitfalls. So The first common pitfall that we see is that the quality of knowledge and content that come from multiple silos that feed generative AI tools is critical. In other words, it's that where I started this conversation. You can't simply bolt generative AI on top of multiple sources of truth, because then you really don't have a single source of truth. You don't have answers. You have gaps, inconsistencies, and generative AI will make a mess of that underlying knowledge mess. Creating generative AI prompts is sort of the new coding. You need to really have good processes and good teams working on those prompts, because prompt management is sort of key intellectual property these days. Lack of content compliance and user experience controls will undermine any AI effort. So content compliance, the way I think about that is when you create new content, you got to make sure that you have the workflows on that so that the subject matter experts, legal, and compliance can review it and sign off on it. Just because generative AI creates something doesn't mean it's going to meet all the legal requirements and compliance requirements that you face in your industry. You know, generative AI output, you need to do continuous improvement. You need to have those reporting analytics to, you know, make sure that nothing gets out of control, and you're constantly tuning the dials so that you get the generative AI output you want. So you can kind of see, I've talked about through the piece of this, but on the right-hand side, you know, the counter of those pitfalls are the lessons learned. So single source of truth, invest in a modern knowledge hub, design your KM process with AI in the middle and an expert in the loop. So you'll notice in everything I've talked about, we don't let the generative AI run enhanced by the human. One of the eGain philosophies is human in the loop. So generative AI may create something, but workflows will have knowledge experts, compliance, legal, etc. sign off on it. Generative answers may be created, but humans will sort of summarize them and read them out and check them. And then, of course, measure, manage, and continuous improvement from day zero. Really critical, something new and as exciting as generative AI. So with that, let me stop sharing and turn it over to Mark, who will show the solution in action.
Great. Thanks, Evan. That was very insightful information that you just presented, so thanks a lot. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. And so what I'm going to be showing today is, as you can see on the screen, a fictitious banking, a fictitious bank and a banking website, and we'll talk about all of the content. But really, for those of you who are not in the banking industry or in the financial services industry, the content that we're showing here is not as important as how we're interacting with the system, how the system is giving us information, and those kinds of things. So look more at that than you look at the actual content that's being provided. All right. Let's start with the findability and how we are able to improve findability by 6 times. There's a couple of ways we allow customers and users to find the relevant and trusted answers they need. From a customer perspective, they can use eGain's AI agent. And I'll just type in my query and keep talking. So the AI agent gathers information from the trusted sources you point it to, from the knowledge base to other websites, to intranets, to document stores. It uses that information to provide answers to users' queries, like what are my options for debt consolidation? And the AI agent is reading the relevant documents and coming up with an answer or some additional questions to get to an answer, like, do you have a home with equity? And are you looking for a short-term or long-term loan? Each time we provide more context, the AI agent goes back to the documents and uses the new information to get me closer to an answer. We also have processes in place to ensure the generative AI does not hallucinate or make stuff up. So we'll just wait a couple more seconds and we'll have an answer. And now it's come up with a response. And along with that response, it also shows me where it got that information from. In this case, it's a PDF document. Now let's see it from a more traditional viewpoint. Using our generative AI findability and search, let's look at how it works in action. So here I'm going to play the role of an end user, whether that's an agent, a customer, an internal employee, or a field engineer. Essentially anyone looking for help, looking for answers. So I'm going to perform a search and look for who pays closing costs. And as I'm typing here, we will see the semantic search kicking in. And as you notice, in addition to, of course, my previous searches, we can now start to see some highlighted information where the system is telling the user that, hey, we found an answer before we even perform the search. Before we get to that instant answer, as we were talking about earlier, I can now click on this particular search suggestion, and what will happen is it will take me to the right section of this very lengthy article in order to find a trusted answer. Now, the benefit of this semantic search, as hopefully you can see here, is that within 2 clicks, I was able to perform a search and get to the right section of the article. The system hasn't just taken me to the top of the article and said, hey, good luck, Mark, go find your answer. It's taken me to the right section of the article and highlighted the actual response that will answer my question. Now, if you think about it, and all of those lengthy PDF documents that everybody has, users are unfortunately left on their own to go and search through them using Control F and just looking for keywords. So here, the system has been able to help me find my answer by taking me to the right section and highlighting it for me. And now, as you can see, this massive article, I no longer need to scroll manually through it. So let's take it even a step further and continue with that search. So I want to refine my search, and in this case, I want to say, who pays closing costs on a $500,000 house? In this case, I've actually performed the search, and it will find that article, find the information, and using generative AI in the background, it will create a response for me. So now I'm being presented with an instant answer within the search results. I also have the ability, of course, to rate that answer, and I can go into the article and actually take a look and see where that information was generated from, just like the semantic search from before. So now if we take it a step even further and ask a multi-threaded question, like in this case, I'm going to ask one of my previous searches here, how do I open a new account and enroll in online banking? And essentially, that multi-threaded question, traditionally as an end user, I would have had to do all of the heavy lifting in order to go and find my answer, in this case from multiple sources, asking those questions different times. And the generative AI has done all of that for me. It looked at all of the relevant content, figured out how to answer both of my questions, and created a single cohesive answer for both questions. And it's again referenced the multiple articles, whether they're articles residing in our existing knowledge base or in your existing knowledge silos and PDFs, as we've talked about, or whether they are available in your website, Confluence pages, or any other repository. We're able to bring all of the content into a single pane of glass for the end user and present them with a trusted answer at the right time. Now, how do we personalize? And how do we ensure that the answers we provide are contextual, personalized, and applicable to the user? So what I'm going to do is just show you a variation of an article where we have used single sourcing, or as we prefer to say, personalization, to create a single article with multiple views. In this case, we're looking at an article that has 2 separate views of that same article. So the benefits here from an author's perspective are that they can create it once and make it available multiple times. And as we said earlier, the knowledge base can be exposed anywhere, whether that's a digital channel or virtual assistant, your virtual assistant, via social media messaging, social media pages, etc. We are then able to use a single knowledge base and present different views. In this case, because I'm logged in as an authenticated as an agent, I'm able to see both views, and that includes the agent as well as the customer view. So, however, if an bank customer would have logged on to, let's say, a help and support page, they would only see the customer-facing view of this particular article. Now, our customers are using this personalization feature in similar scenarios to what I've just shown you here, but also you can use this for different channels. As I mentioned, you can use it for products, different regions, and any other variations that you may have on top of your existing knowledge today. But just to make it simple for an author from a maintenance perspective to have that content and that knowledge available to the right sources. All right, so let's move on. We use another AI technology in our process guidance. When the inquiry requires a little bit of guidance in order to get to the right information, we use our case-based reasoning or guided help functionality. This guides the agent through a step-by-step complex process to help the customer, or it can guide the customer directly through a self-serve option. Again, through those various channels, whether that's a WhatsApp, an Apple Business Chat, messaging channel, whatever. So here I'm going to look for a mortgage selector. Let's get started and take a look and see how we can guide an agent who's on the phone to a customer through the mortgage selection process. As the agent walks the customer over the telephone or through that digital channel, the system in the background starts to calculate the right paths to present the next best action. So here I'm presented with a few questions that I can answer. And as I answer refinance, you'll notice that some of the questions have now disappeared because they're no longer in scope based on what I was answering. So here I'm going to go through a few of these steps, and then suddenly the customer turns around and says, hey, I didn't want to refinance. I'd actually like to get a new mortgage. So instead of starting from step one, our case-based reasoning is able to recalculate that right path and take the agent and the customer to the next best step within that process without losing any of the previous context by simply allowing the agent to change that previously answered question. Now, as I start to go through that process, as I mentioned, we're also being presented with possible solutions as well as provide guidance to the agent or to the customer. So we've got some very detailed guidance here on the left-hand side to allow the agent to concentrate on the soft skills while they're speaking to the end customer. Now let's take a short look at the insights that are available for both our authors as well as our supervisors and administrators using our eGain Analytics Hub. So here I'm looking at a dashboard presented to a knowledge manager in addition to what we showed earlier around instant answers. This is just another flavor to gain insights into how the knowledge is actually performing. It's showing us the quality, the effectiveness feedback, as well as what users are actually asking for. And my favorite report down here on the bottom left is around the lowest rated articles. And so I'm just going to click into one of these. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the actual article come up. And it gives me the ability to preview this article, see what it actually contains, as well as some suggestions that were left by other users. And now, from a knowledge manager's perspective, in a single pane of glass, I am able to go ahead and make an action off the back of these suggestions by clicking or editing one of the suggestions, which would then take me directly into the knowledge authoring world. Now, let's take a look and see how we've been able to improve knowledge curation using generative AI to achieve that 5x performance that we talked about. For that, I'm going to switch over into our knowledge base and our knowledge authoring console. And here I've already logged in as a knowledge manager who is looking to improve the existing content. Here we're looking at an article, but it's really just a dump of text, essentially. I can use AssistGPT to make quick changes to this article by selecting from the prompt library, whether it's one of our pre-built prompts or it's a prompt you've created or modified using our no-code prompt engineering console. Each and every single one of these prompts you can tailor and personalize to ensure that the changes and improvements made are in line with your branding, your style guides, and ensure that your brand is passed on when updating, modifying, and optimizing your content. The prompts we have here are to improve an article, change the formatting of tables, expand acronyms correctly. You can even have AssistGPT create a new article from the information contained within a trusted PDF document. I'm going to use AssistGPT slightly differently. And in addition to our user feedback that we're allowing agents and end users to provide to tell us what needs to change, we also have AI insights that allows us to easily use our AssistGPT functionality to determine what we can do to improve the article. Like we need to apply our style guide or reapply an article template, fix the readability of the article, or address duplicate content. And then we can use AssistGPT to make the desired changes as well. So as you can see here, there are a few style guide fixes that need to be done. Headings, missing disclaimer, the passive to active voice of the article, and creating some better lists. We can have AssistGPT make those changes to the article automatically, and we can also get more information about that duplicate article content that it found as well. And this is absolutely life-changing from a knowledge author perspective, as it takes the grunt work away. And as I mentioned, we have the ability to point it to the trusted sources, whether that's a PDF, a web page, or a Confluence site, or existing knowledge repositories, to start curating and creating that knowledge within the knowledge base. The last thing I want to show is how we created the AI agent from the beginning of the demonstration. You simply tell the system what kind of persona you want and which trusted sources it should use to get its information, and the AI does the rest. So the bottom line is that along with the entire Knowledge Hub that eGain provides, eGain's AI increases the speed and efficiency at which users find answers, create and curate content, and deploy knowledge solutions. All right, well, so that's it for today for me. Evan, back to you. I'm going to just stop sharing here.
Okay, thanks, Mark. You covered a lot of ground. I love how you put pictures behind the words that I was sharing via the deck. So great. So let me just.
So, Evan, we have some questions from the audience.
Wait, I've got a couple more. I'm not quite ready for questions. Let me do a couple more things to cover. Give me a sec. All right. So hopefully between the overview that I started with and Mark's demonstration, we've piqued your interest to get a best of breed knowledge solution into your organization. When I was at my mega bank, I know the hardest part of getting a new technology in is coming up with a compelling business case that is better than all the other projects fighting for your company's investment dollars. eGain's been at this business for 25 years, and we've built a database of best practices. And with the companies that we are chatting with, we can, as long as they come with some key pieces of data like current call volume, first contact resolution, handle time, number of agents, call deflection rates, etc., we can work and tailor a business case that meets that's applicable to your situation. So what we do is we look at the types of results we've gotten in similar situations and similar industries, and we sort of bucket the benefits by the key, as you see here on the right, the key areas. And we do this in conjunction with the executives we're working with. And what we typically see is a business case that translates to anywhere between 4 to 8 ROI in the first year. So knowledge management, particularly when the company has multiple silos of knowledge today, is low-hanging fruit from a business benefit standpoint. The other tool we have for those of you that we've piqued your interest and you want to kind of explore in a serious way knowledge management in your enterprise is we have a no-risk, no obligation proof of concept. We call it Innovation in 30 Days. And what we do is we take a couple of actual use cases that you provide and we load those into the eGain system. So I was working with one company, it was a medical device company, and one of the most challenging processes their customer support team had when one of the devices from a hospital needed to be returned to the manufacturer for repair and a loaner given out because these equipment are expensive and hospitals and doctors' offices really need them. The loaner exchange program process was incredibly complex. Well, we loaded that into the eGain system as part of this POC, and their agents used that and played with it to compare and contrast how it would work in a best-of-breed knowledge solution versus their current system. Help them wrap their heads around the benefits, as well as the senior executives to see in action in their actual company what the potential opportunity for improvement was. So that's it. Now it's time for the questions, Sanjeev.
All right. So one of the questions that came in was related to GenAI and how GenAI can create new content and organize that. So the question is, will the AI take existing content and suggest then the best way to organize it for multiple topics? So it's basically organizing the articles or the content into like taxonomy or topics. So maybe you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, I can take that one. So the answer is yes. We can definitely use generative AI and other AI technologies to grab the content and do the organization of the content and either have it suggest topics, or if you have already a taxonomy that you're using, we can have the GenAI put those articles and put that content into those existing taxonomy topics.
The other thing that we can do, kind of building on what Mark said, is we can also use our generative AI to find what are the sources of the inconsistencies, the sort of the conflicting guidance in the current knowledge base, because that needs to be cleaned up for the generative AI to work. So that's a very powerful tool. And then you kind of look at which articles are in conflict and you sort out that using the generative AI.
Yeah, just to add some color on that, the case study that Evan shared, they had shared call transcripts with us, and they wanted to find out, how to build the knowledge base and how to organize that. So GenAI was very extensively used to come up with the top questions and, organizing them in the right way. So that was something that was done. Maybe it was not, brought out very, in the case study, but that is exactly what was done in a real life scenario. We have one more question, which is related to the security, or I would say keeping the knowledge safe. The question is, how do you keep the knowledge or the information safe and secure? So that is one question from Julie.
Sure, and I can take that one as well. So we have a lot of different security practices that we use for keeping information safe. Everything in our knowledge base is encrypted, and both in transit and at rest. There's a lot of data center security things that we do, the whole SOC 2 and all that. But then if you're asking more about the generative AI pieces and how we keep data secure when using generative AI, when we use generative AI to answer questions or to provide, updates to knowledge base articles, everything we send to the generative AI, as soon as it's used, it then gets thrown away. The generative AI model does not save any of the information that we send it. It does not use it for training or anything like that. It's all just used and then thrown away. And the only thing that's returned back to us is the generative response and some other things from the API, like where did it get the information from and so forth. But then the generative AI model throws everything away. So that's where the security comes in from a generative AI perspective.
That's great. We have one more question, which is related to, what kind of organizations can actually take knowledge and GenAI and, benefit from that. So the question is, what sort of activities or milestones should the organization have completed to indicate that they're ready for AI? So basically, when can they start leveraging the benefits of AI built on top of?
Let me start there, and Mark, you can jump in, Mark. So I would say all organizations can start taking advantage of generative AI right now. And the starting point would be to get a handle on your current knowledge base, to like we talked about with the utility case, make sure you have best practice knowledge for the top contact situations, the top questions and issues that your customers are contacting you. The generative AI can use that to identify those top use cases like we did at the utility, as well as to create best practice consumable content and knowledge for your customers and agents to consume. That's a great starting point. And then, shortly thereafter, weeks thereafter, you can start to use the generative AI capabilities to provide the right trusted answer at the right time to the right person in the right channel and make it pithy and easily consumable. The cool thing of all this, when you use a best-of-breed knowledge solution, you can kind of work simultaneously to two angles: the cleaning up, the curation, and the creation of a single source of truth, and then the providing the trusted answers being published to all your key stakeholders in the right channel. Mark, what would you add?
Yeah, actually, Evan, that was really good. I think the only thing that I would add to that is just, and actually, I think you said it, is that you can start using AI right away, whether you have a knowledge base or whether you don't have a knowledge base, because you can use it to figure out what should you put in the knowledge base. So you can start out using AI to just figure out what your knowledge base should have in it, and then also use AI to help you get the information in there, make sure it's formatted properly, make sure that it's curated properly, make sure it's not conflicting with other pieces of content in your knowledge base, and all of that, and then also use it on the more front end of trying to find the right answers as well. So, Evan, what you said is great.
All right. I think we have one more question that we can accommodate given the time. So the question is around hallucination. So this person is, the listener who's asking this question works in a regulatory environment. And the question is, my work requires us to follow exact regulatory guidance. And if the response given is close, but not exact, that will cause many issues. So basically, How do we prevent hallucination? How do we present the trusted answer? I think that's the question.
So let me start with that, because we have one of the features. So I came from banking, as you know, and in banking, there's many times where exact verbatim script by federal regulation must be provided to the customer. I'm sure you've all heard those, particularly around credit cards. So we have a feature. I love this feature where you can highlight a certain bit in a policy or procedure, a certain set of copy and text, and say, this must always be presented verbatim. And so that'll never be generatively summarized or changed in any way, shape, or form. So that's one way. We also do, when we send stuff to the large language models, we have confidence level dials that you control. Basically, we get back from the large language models, how confident is it in the answer that it was generated? And you can say, I only want to show stuff that's where the model was highly confident, medium confident, etc. And so that's another control. Most of our clients, at least to start with, are setting the dial at high because they want to make sure that there are no sort of variants from the core text that the material started with. Mark, again, you probably have some good content to add here, so I'll toss it over to you.
Yeah. So I think the threshold piece that you said, Evan, is one of the key things, and it's the threshold is not necessarily how confident are we that we got an answer, but it's more around how similar does the answer that was generated match the information that it was provided as context to answer the question. So one of the things that we do is the first thing we do when we're using the generative AI to answer questions is we do a semantic search of the knowledge base and find 5 to 10 article snippets that we think will answer the question. Then we send those over to generative AI and say, hey, answer the question for us and provide answers to these. Then when we get that back, the generative AI can come up with just about anything. So we always do a match against what the generative AI gave us to what we gave it as the answer, or as the possible answers, so that we know that the generative AI is giving us information that actually came from the knowledge base that we have. So we know that those two things match, and that threshold that Evan's talking about is how closely do those two things match, and we make sure that the information that we're getting back from the generative AI is actually information that's from the knowledge base or very close to it. So that's number one. Then, as you said, Evan, the other thing is our ability to say we only want, if this article is the answer to the question, or this section of the article is the answer to the question, it must be said verbatim. Do not use a generative AI on it, and do not paraphrase this. It must be said exactly as is. And so when we provide that answer to the customer, we will say this is the verbatim answer, by saying it was extracted from the article instead of generated from the article. So I hope that answers your question, Sanjeev. And there's a couple of other questions coming in, I think. I don't know if we have time.
Yeah, I don't have more questions.
Okay.
I think thank you, and I will hand over to Eric to summarize and close.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Well, thank you very much, Evan, Mark, Sanjeev. Great presentation. Got the recording. We'll have the edited version here ready in just a few days. Everyone who registered will be the first to get it. And we just want to thank everyone for joining us today. And like I said earlier, we hope to do many more with our eGain partner here. And thanks again for joining us.